I didn't leave one of my jobs because of the pay. I left because I felt invisible. I needed acknowledgement at the time and action, not just airtime or me time. I spoke up in meetings, I gave feedback, even offered ideas. Nothing changed. And I wasn't the only one. Eventually, I stopped caring, so I left. That's the sentence that no one really puts on their resignation letter, but are definitely having the conversation. We're chatting up, and the group chats, venting about it at dinner, or even whispering it to our trusted coworkers, all in the after hours. We all have heard a version of the story, or lived it, and maybe experiencing it. On this episode of Ask HR, the question is to share our individual reasons and experiences to why we left a good job, if we have regrets, and if anything could have prevented us not to go. So we're bringing it to the mic, even though it's in the after hours, because what we say, how it's being said, what we do, and or is reflected in our day to day. To be clear, this conversation isn't just about the exit statements and resignation. It's about reflection, how we actively listen, how we empathize, or if we're comprehending others' perspective, how we're actively changing and moving things in motion. Do we take the initiative or responsibility? And are we embedding any changes and new narratives into our culture? We have 5 statements to share, including my own, and we're looking at specifically why we leave roles that still have potential, what leaders think they're hearing versus what's actually being said, and whether anything could have been done to make us stay. Because the truth is, most resignations are preventable if someone has truly been listening. So here's my experience to kick us off. I didn't leave because I hated the job. I left because I didn't see a future in it. What I was also saying, I wanted to stay, but I needed growth. There were no clear path, no real development. It was just high expectations, low recognition. What my employer heard, she left for something better, which is exactly what I wrote in my exit interview. Duh. And so, what if we create workplaces where ambition was more nurtured, not exploited? Growth didn't mean sacrifice without supporting our employees. It wasn't just a code for burnout. What if going the extra mile didn't lead to invisibility? That's what I felt. And why does this matter? Think in the context of retention. This matters because retention is about vision alignment. The state conversation should happen long before the exit. Now, my own experience aside, I called on my peeps. Yes, I have peeps. And here's what they had to say. One statement: we celebrated inclusion, and it's reflected in our handbook. I noticed that belonging was being ignored in the break room. We talk about diversity, but no one's actually living it. I was expected to bring my whole self, but only the parts that didn't make others feel uncomfortable were welcome. What the employee is also saying, the language in the culture was inclusive, but the behavior was exclusive. And what the employer likely heard, they didn't feel like they fit in. And so, what if belonging wasn't the buzzword, but it was the behavior? That inclusion was measured on how safe people feel on a random Tuesday. And so, what if we stopped centering culture fit and started practicing culture expansion? And why this matters: we can't build trust on copy and pasting DEI statements. When employees sense a disconnect between what's being said and practice, there goes your engagement and retention. Belonging isn't something you say, it's something people feel. When the break room doesn't reflect the board values, people check out or they walk out. You know the saying, people remember how you make them feel. Why does this framework work? Because it's a people first strategy always concept. It's a simple reflected framework that reframes you and I as people leaders by asking how we are hearing our people. What narratives needs to be shifted? Where are we unintentionally reinforcing harm? How can we lead with curiosity and responsibility? This isn't just thought leadership. It's thought partnership. We have 4 other statements, so be sure to listen to the full audio episode for them all and some deeper insights. These conversation matters, especially the after-hour ones. Too much is being overlooked, whether intentionally or simply due to the lack of awareness. Remember, this was an after-hour conversation. We don't talk about Bruno. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Seriously, though, these after hours conversations matter. Too much goes unspoken, whether it's from fear, fatigue, or it has now become a habit. That's why we're going to optimize our Ask HR office hour, and we're developing a masterclass series, one where we're going to give you deeper strategies, more honest insight, and actionable tools and resources. In the series, we're going to further break down our framework. Unlearn the culture of silence. Thanks for tuning in. Have a question for the show? Send it to askhr@yppmc.com. Listen now on Spotify or your favorite podcast platform. And before signing off, don't forget to subscribe, follow, share, and engage with us.